Pete with Backdraft Bikes, doing a quick review on this 23 Royal Enfield Continental GT 650 Twin. Stick around. Okay, so here we are. We're back. We're with the Royal Enfield Continental GT 650. Really cool looking bike. Very old style cues to it, and not a lot going on as far as technology. It's very simple. Single-sided brake. We've got a manual clutch. Just cable operated, and being the 650 Twin, it has a little bit more power, but we're not setting the world on fire with this. 47 horsepower, and it is a whopping 445 pounds. So let's give it a ride, shall we? So this is the Cafe Racer edition of the 650. Definitely pitched down. Controls are a little bit back in the launch position. Feels nice. But man, the 650 is such a step up from the single cylinders that they sell, the 411s. Obviously, right? This has clip-ons, so again, you're getting your cafe style going. And really, it's interesting that Royal Enfield played a huge part in the original Cafe Racer. That was one of the things that they kind of pioneered. So this is an ode to the beginning, if you will. So the power band on this is similar to the other 650 that I rode. The gentleman told me the engines are exactly the same. They don't actually have anything going on, but it's a nice motor. It doesn't seem like it has a lot of torque down low. You've got to have it in the 4,000 RPM range. That seems to be where the power band comes on these motors, and this bike is it's in the same ballpark. After I've ridden it a few times now, it just is a fun bike to ride. The position on this bike, you're hunched over a little bit, so I'm not gonna lie, I don't think that's the most comfortable. For sportiness, it's there, but long ride on this bike, I mean, your wrists and your hands are gonna hurt after, you know, probably 20-ish minutes. The gauges on this leave a little bit to be desired because there isn't any of your computerized, you know, estimated tank range and such like you see on most bikes nowadays. But again, this price point on this bike is there. You do get an odometer and a trip meter, A and B, and that's it. That's all that you have. I do like the fact that this has a tachometer. Some of the other models do not, so I do like that. The flickability of this bike is better than the other 650, but it's not as good handling as some of the cafes that I've ridden. Again, it could be the tire choice that Enfield sells with these, I don't know. But it's not bad. It's not bad. I will say I wish this bike had dual rotors in the front. I really do. It does not. And the suspension on the front seems to dive a little, especially even on the braking. The shifter on this bike is actually in a really nice location for a cafe. I've been on some of these and it's very difficult to shift. Extremely difficult to shift. And actually thinking a little bit about the BMW, the R18s that they've come out with now. And I mean, those are cruisers, but shifting is just horrendous. So this is in a nice position even for my size 14 feet. Speaking of size, I'm 6'4". I'm not totally crunched up on this bike, but I'm definitely not spread out at all. This bike I think would be suited for someone in the 6'2" range, and because it's got a low profile, I think anybody really above 5'7" could probably easily ride this bike. But I would even go down lower than that. I'd probably say 5'3", you'd be okay. Maybe tippy a little bit, but not bad. The power band on the 650 is pretty interesting because it, like I said, it doesn't have a ton of torque down low. That's full throttle. I mean, you're lugging it at like 2,500, but if you get this up in the 5,000 RPM range, 4,000 I should say is where it kind of starts, but 45 it wakes right up. It isn't bad. It isn't bad. I mean, this bike, just under 500 pounds. It's not super heavy, not super light. There's a lot of metal on this bike, a lot of metal pieces. It's 650 power plant is decent for the size, but it's nothing. I've ridden other 650s that are a lot faster. So, but again, this is what you're getting with a Royal Enfield. I think this bike's price point's right around $6,000. Where are you going to buy a brand new motorcycle with a warranty that doesn't look half bad for that amount of money? You know, it's not heard of nowadays, for sure. These snake strips on the road are absolutely awful on these bikes. The other bike I rode too, when I leaned on it, it was quite scary. So just got to be careful. Again, it could be the factory tire too. You know, they're trying to put out a bike relatively cheap, so bumping up to like a Continental Conti Attack or something like that might prove to be a real big step up as far as the handling and rideability. Here we go. Ready? So that's your first gear. I apologize, we're riding in a pack. It's the way that Royal Enfield does it. We appreciate Royal Enfield letting us take these for demos, though. I don't want to complain. This isn't a bad bike. It's actually quite fun. Now, I can compare this to like a Thruxton. The 800s, very similar geometry, but more power. And the Thruxton R is obviously a 1200, ton of power. Just a totally different bike. So, but for this bike, for being a 650, it's not bad. So you can see my legs, I have plenty of bend to them. Plenty. Welcome to the Atlantic Ocean, bud. There she blows. So, put a little lean angle on this. I mean, it's not a bad cornering bike at all. It feels pretty solid going into a corner. I'm pretty confident. And I imagine with stickier tires, man, this bike, you could drive it like a rail. Beautiful day to be riding too. Wow, it's so nice out. As far as suspension stiffness on this goes, it's not bad. I'm 230 pounds, so I'm not a light guy by any stretch of the imagination, but the bike isn't bottoming out. The front suspension is a little on the soft side for a cafe, in my opinion, because you are putting so much weight on the handlebars being pitched down. I would much prefer to see that a little bit stiffer. And you know, if it's anything like Triumphs, the way that these forks are built, you can change the springs out in them. There's a lot of things you can do, but these are not adjustable from the factory. There's no adjustment. But maybe a stiffer set of springs in there might do wonders too. But I wouldn't say, in my short period I've been riding this bike around town, that it's awful. It's definitely a good balance between comfort and handling. Really do like the shifter on this bike. And all of the Royal Enfields, for that matter, I've ridden, they've had decent gearboxes. That's a full throttle roll on right there. And then the brakes are really mediocre at best. So again, you're just going to want to pay attention when you're riding. Interesting thing too, I find my legs are like being pushed right into the side of the cylinder heads, my knees, and I imagine sitting in traffic, that'd be awful. They have these little chicken wire guard things on it, and when I was looking at the bike before, I thought, I wonder what those are for. Well, now I know why they put them there, because if you didn't, you'd burn the inside of your kneecap right off. So that's kind of a good thought that they put that there, but it's too bad that they had to put that there. I mean, not sure how you could do else you could change that from happening. I don't really know a solution to that. It's really interesting too, even on the higher RPMs on this bike, if you're getting up towards redline, the bike isn't real vibey. It's actually pretty tame for vibrations, especially on a cafe racer where you're really pushing down on the handlebars. It's actually decent. These have a 6-speed gearbox as well. The 650s that Enfield makes are all 6-speed, so that gives you a little extra, I guess, for the highway. Would I take this thing on a big highway adventure? No, not a chance. It's just not conducive to that. The riding position's not conducive to it. It's just completely open and exposed. But as far as a twisty rip down the side streets and back roads going somewhere, I'd probably do that. I wouldn't want to be on this bike for much more than an hour at a time, just because of the riding position, and I'm not really short-armed at all, and I find myself, my arms are right extended as well, so even with somebody shorter, that's going to pitch you over the tank even more, and put more stress on your wrists. So something to think about. Out of all the Himalayans that here, see, I just gave it away. Out of all the Enfields I've ridden so far, I really did like the Himalayan Scrambler. Even though the power wasn't exactly there with the twin cylinders, it was quite fun to ride, and it was a nice, enjoyable experience as far as the streetability, the comfort, upright riding position. I really did like that. So again, not a bad bike. Definitely on the lower end of cafe racers that can be purchased as far as price point goes. The quality and the build, it's there. But you get what you pay for, and you're not going to be overpaying for a name when you're dealing with Royal Enfield. You're getting, you know what you're getting by looking at the bike, and when you take this thing for a ride, you'll exactly know what I'm talking about, because there's no surprises with the throttle. It's very linear. And it's not a bad cruiser. So those are just my thoughts on the bike. I appreciate you tuning in. Hopefully it hasn't been too much of a ramble. If you've ridden one of these bikes or you own one, I'd love to know your thoughts and the long-term rideability of it. You can always shoot a comment down below, and appreciate you subscribing. It really helps us keep going. Until next time, ride safe.